Welcome to Stranger Connections, where I celebrate wonderfully weird people and their quirky stories. I'm your curious beast and host, Lisa David Olson, the practically world famous business humorist, interactive speaker, and connection queen. Reach out if you want me to help you reignite your team or your event. Now, today I'm going to speak with someone who comes from the physician world, emergency room. Can you imagine? And now she's got a lot to share as she teaches others how to reclaim your sparkle. Welcome to Stranger Connections, Iris Van Nespen.
Thank you for having me, Lisa. It's very, very special to be here.
I am so glad we found each other. I think it's incredible work that you do, that you have given years and experience to the emergency room. I bet you've seen a lot of things.
I have, like, sometimes you almost forget how many weird, beautiful, horrible things you see. Yeah, it's been interesting. That's the least you can say.
Weird, beautiful, and horrible. You've just described every family reunion I've ever had. So, yeah. And now, how long were you an emergency room physician?
Um, about 16 years, like, no, that I finished my studies about 13, but like when you are specializing, you're actually really working already. It's often even tougher. So yeah, about 16 years.
And we'll get to what you've switched to. You're now doing some coaching, but when you were in the emergency room, was it the long hours and you had to be ready to do just about anything, or did you have a specialized care? Tell me about what it was like.
No, we do everything, like from trauma to chronic illnesses to everything that comes in. We need to actually decide if it's urgent or not, if the patient needs to be hospitalized, if they need resuscitation. That's mostly you see it, but it's everything. It's from the little nick in the finger to real life and death situations. It's very varied. There's a big variety of things you do, which makes it very interesting and tiring at the same time.
Right. How would you even prepare for that? How do you prepare your brain to say, okay, I'm walking in and I'm going to maybe have to bring somebody back to life. Maybe I'm going to help a child not be scared. The variances are in there as well as mental health issues.
Yeah, you actually, most of the time when it's in the hospital, you actually kind of know what to prepare for because the nurses tell you. So, but we in Belgium, I'm from Belgium. In Belgium, we also go out to people's houses when there's like emergency calls, like the EMRS. And then it actually becomes, you more or less know what you're going to find, but often it doesn't correspond. It doesn't really correspond to what people said on the phone. And then when you go in and you see the situation, I always feel like everything goes quiet for about 10 seconds. It becomes like really quiet inside, and then you just have to go. And if it's resuscitation, you just have to go, and yeah, it's automatic, but you need to know what kind of situation you're in, what happened, and what you still can do to actually get that person back to life.
Oh, I'm
But
sure.
it's very odd that it's not that stressful. It becomes quiet. The stress is
Oh,
before and after.
I'm sure that's situational, like for firefighters and police department, that they don't know what they're walking into. They just have to be prepared for anything. So that's
Exactly.
incredible. Then one
Mm.
day you said, I think I'm going to change the sandwich I'm having for lunch here. I think I'm going to dial it back. So tell me about how you decided to tone it
Uh,
back a little bit.
well, it's not one day. It took several years. Like, it's not a decision you make, because becoming a physician is a very um, long road, because you have to study very hard, you have to work very hard. It takes at least 10, 15, 20 years of your life. But I discovered that I was lacking something, and I never understood what it was, because I had everything in my mind that I'd ever dreamed of. Like, I have a beautiful man, I have 3 amazing kids, I have a house, I have a job that is meaningful, and still something was missing. And to me, at one point, I found out, and it was joy. I was missing this sparkle. That's why I call it's Reclaim Your Sparkle, because to me, it's what actually gives you, what makes you you, that little sparkle in your eye, your smile. And I wasn't smiling that much anymore, and I didn't understand, and I was actually numb, a lot of it, numb and overwhelmed. It was a mix between those two. And so when I discovered that what I was missing was my joy, I made it my mission to get it back. So it was one sentence of actually Tony Robbins. I don't know if you know Tony Robbins, but one sentence of Tony Robbins that actually really woke me up, when he said, "The quality of your life is the quality of your emotions." And I went like, oh, the quality of my life is overwhelm and stress. And this is not what I want my life to be. And then he makes you yell, and he makes you decide what it is you want. And to me, it was like, I was like, joy.
You're just
And that's like,
screaming joy.
yeah, I like joy. I really need more joy. I need more laughter. I mean, and it's something that's what I'm telling my clients now as well. It's something you have to reclaim. First of all, you have to become aware of what it is you're missing, and then you have to claim it, reclaim it. And that is what I found a lot of people aren't doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, first of all, often they don't know what they're missing. And secondly, when they do, they don't reclaim it, and they don't fight for it. I don't like the word fight, but they don't go for it.
Right.
Can't get
Nobody's
it.
going to give it to you. You have to go grab
Voilà.
it.
Nobody's going to give it to you. Nobody's going to give you your joy.
No,
You
no.
have to go for it. It's inside of you, and you can always get there, but you need to know how. And that's something you have to teach yourself, or get help to reclaim it.
So say that I don't know what I'm missing, but I say something is, it's like tasting a recipe and you're like, it's missing something, but we're talking about our lives. So how do we find the missing ingredient? What's some of the steps we can take if we're going to work with you?
For me, the first step, the first question is, do I love this? I
Mm,
think like this is a question we, as adults, we ask ourselves very, very seldomly. And I think it's one of the most important questions you can actually ask yourself. Do I love this? Is this something that I do because I love it? Or is it something that I do because other people tell me to do it? And to start to break free from the constraints that other people put on you, or sometimes that you put on yourself, because it's not always other people, it's also your assumptions and the things you think you should do. But by asking yourself that question, do I love this? It's the first step to actually start to rediscover yourself. And often when you start asking that question, for me, I didn't know anymore. I had to ask myself that question over and over and over again. And slowly I started to find the answers. But it goes, sometimes it's just like, do I love this food that I've ordered? You know, like I told one of my clients, her kids made her call the restaurant before, like, no, not call the restaurant, but they made her look at the menu before they went to the restaurant, because she would be sitting there not knowing what to order. And it would take her so long. They were like, Mom, we can't do this anymore. Yeah,
oh
but
man.
that's how crazy it gets when you're not in tune with what you love anymore.
Right. That you've probably been a mom or a dad and you've made decisions for others, or maybe you're directing people at work and it comes down to yourself. And I totally understand that. There's days you just don't even know what the heck you want to order. Just put something in front of me. You
Exactly.
also had a very major life-changing thing happen. You shared a story once that I saw somewhere, that you talk about a medical incident that happened with you.
Yeah, that was about now almost, yeah, 5, 6 years ago. I was working a 24-hour shift because we still do those crazy things. Yeah, I just, to me now it's mind-boggling, but yeah, physicians often work 24-hour shifts. And half of my face went numb. The left half of my face just went numb. And I didn't know what was happening, but it was really busy. So I went to the bathroom and I stood in front of the mirror and I moved my face and I could still move everything, my mouth, my eyes, everything. And so I came to the very lucid conclusion that I wasn't having a stroke. So I went back outside into the emergency room. I didn't tell anybody and I just continued working. And up till this day, I'm like, what was I thinking? But I actually know what I was thinking. I was thinking like, this can't be real. So I wasn't believing myself, which is something physicians do often. And then I didn't want to bother my colleagues because it was busy. And so because I didn't really believe myself, it took me 2 months to get an MRI. And I was lying there and I thought everything is going to be fine, although I was having weird feelings in my arm and my face wasn't still completely recovered. And when I was getting dressed, I got a knock on the little cabin door and he said, "Dr. Van Espen, can you please come? The radiologist would like to talk to you." And then my heart stood still. And I went outside and he showed me like I had a tumor that was what is it, 1.5 centimeters. That's a little bit less than an inch in diameter. And so I looked at it and he said, I think it's a meningioma. And my first reaction to that was like, oh, oof, it's only that. Because a meningioma is a benign tumor of the brain. It's like your meninges that are, but it could have been it's something really bad. And if I had waited for 2 months to get that diagnosed, I probably wouldn't be here anymore. So now I would like to tell you that this was the epiphany that made me change my life, but it's not. So I went to the neurosurgeon. I had it removed. I thought I was going to be back in the emergency room 2 weeks later, which wasn't the case because it was more invasive than I thought it was going to be. But it took me another year to actually start to realize what had happened and that I had never been as stressed and as overwhelmed in my life as the period I was having this tumor. And then it took me another year to actually start really changing my life. Really, because I'd already started to work less, but mentally I hadn't changed. Mentally, I was still overwhelmed. I was still driven. It's really weird because you're overwhelmed and driven. You think you can do everything. Like I just had a baby. We had renovated the house. I was working. Like I did the whole thing myself, you know. And at the same time, I was like numb, and it's
yes.
a very weird combination.
And you were
But
just in go mode, go.
yeah,
They
yeah, it's
say,
survival mode. It's really
right.
survival mode. It's like you think you're doing good and actually you're just surviving. Because the thing is as well, when you are busy like that, when you are being a human doing instead of a human being, you're not being there, which means you're not really being there for the people around you either. So I would be playing with my kids, but I wouldn't be there. You know, like I would be thinking about the table that still needed to be cleared or the dishes, or I wouldn't be there. And that was also, I found so painful that when I reclaimed my joy, that was a thing that I was really reclaiming as well. I want to be there because I've always been present, but not always been there. So, and that's like, I can still remember the first time I really played with my little one. She was about 3. And we were just doing a really stupid card game with animals. One is bigger than the other. And we played for an hour and a half and we laughed. And it wasn't about the game. Of course, it's never about the game, but sometimes it is. You know, you're playing this game even with your kids and it's still the game. The game isn't important.
Mm-hmm.
It's like this real connection you're having laughing and doing stuff. And I didn't think about the table once, and I was so happy.
Yeah, the table will
So,
wait. The dishes
of
absolutely
course.
wait. And
Yeah.
there other people can do that stuff. Why not? Let's say you hire somebody out or you do a trade with some other mom and you say, you do my dishes while I play and I'll come over and do yours while you play, whatever. I mean, to be creative and find your time, the kids aren't going to say, I grew up in a clean home.
Exactly. And I mean, I don't, the weird thing is, I don't even, it doesn't really bother me that much. But
Hmm.
when you are in this negative mindset where you're overwhelmed, everything starts to be important. Whereas it wasn't, it never been before. I was
Right.
this kind of person, I would invite 15 people over and start cooking an hour before they arrived. I was, but when I was in this stage, just thinking of having people over would get me completely frozen.
Right.
And that was another sign that I wasn't being myself, that something was really, really wrong. So there's so many signs. And I would invite your listeners to start looking in, like, what are the signs that you are not being the person you truly are, that something is not right. And you actually, when you start asking yourself that question, you know. But it's often very painful to look at it, because
Right.
it's painful not to recognize yourself. And you have to be very brave, I think.
You do have to be brave because we all want to act like we're getting it all done, but are we really? If we take a step back, what happens if you leave your home for a day? Just do things get done? Did anybody care if it got done? Are you,
Of course not.
or like me growing up, raising my kids years before you were doing it, you can hear me in every video, but I'm not in the video. And
Mm.
that part breaks my heart because that means I wasn't on the floor doing the thing. It means I was making sure I recorded it. Well,
Yeah.
I should have been doing it. I'm
Mhm.
not saying it was that much, but it was enough that it was like, wow, it's just my voice on the recording with my finger pointing, hey, over there. That's kind of regret. And I think we need to take a step back. And you help people do that now. Let's talk about
Yeah,
reclaiming
that's
your sparkle because you're coaching others. Who are your clients?
yeah, that's my aim now. I really truly believe that when you reclaim your joy, it can be something else for you, but I truly believe that joy is when you feel joy and when you express joy, you're the truest to who you really are. That's the truest form of you. All the other stuff, it's add-ons, but that joy, you can't fake it. And I also, like, I read this article, and it said, you know what the opposite is of joy?
What is it?
It's not sadness, it's not being depressed. The opposite of joy is fear. And so when you have a feeling of joy, your fear just dissipates. And fear is what's keeping you down. Fear is what's keeping you small. And your joy actually expands you. So that's why for me, and I didn't know this when I reclaimed my joy, but starting to read up on joy afterwards, I was like, oh, that explains a lot. Like, this is the antidote to fear, is joy. So that's what I'm trying to um, share with my clients, to reclaim it. And how do you do it? Yes, by asking yourself the good questions, by making not to-do lists, by asking yourself, is this important? There's a whole process we go through. It's like, by knowing that your life is yours and the only person who can live your life is you. So make the right choices, make the choices that make you sparkle if you want to, that make you vibrant, because when you feel alive, that is actually a gift to yourself, but also to all the people around you. Like, if you have a mom that is vibrant, but how fun is it to be a kid? I mean, maybe you can't be vibrant all the time, but when you are mostly vibrant, your kids are going to love it, and you're going to play, and it's going to be fun. Whereas if you are like me before and you're mostly numb, and I was still a good mom, but there was still something missing. It's not the same.
And joy
And
is contagious. Yes,
yeah,
it's a
joy is
contagious thing.
yeah.
And that's going to be a happier household. We don't have to do all the things, but we should be present. That is the gift to
Mhm.
ourselves. Who is your clients? Who should reach out to you?
I have a niche of physicians
Mm-hmm.
because as physicians, 40 to 60% of physicians are actually struggling with burnout. Most of them, I think, don't really realize, but when they do studies and they look at the criteria for burnout, 40 to 60% of physicians are actually fulfilling those. And but I also coach women in general who feel that something is missing and who know that their life could be so much fuller. So I I talk a lot to physicians because I know, being one myself, it's very difficult to reach them. They need it, but for us, the mental health issue is still a big stigma, and we still don't really, I still feel that a lot of us don't believe in the mind-body connection. So yeah, it's a very difficult step to take.
Yes.
That's what I'm trying to offer to them. But what I'm doing, other women can benefit of it as well. And I just think that the message of joy, when you feel joy, you don't want to hurt anybody.
Right.
So to me, joy, and that sounds maybe a little woo-woo, but to me, joy is one of the solutions to world peace. Like, honestly, I
It is.
believe.
It's one of the
Yeah,
first steps, of course.
I believe like when you go in, like Thich Nhat Hanh, who was a Zen Buddhist monk, he said the way out is in, and I
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that.
Mm-hmm.
It can only come through you. And
Especially if you're that person yipping about all this and pointing outwardly and saying, oh, they need to do this and they need to do that. And I wish this, that means you are not working on you.
mhm.
So quit pointing outward and start pointing inward and take care of the inside and reach out to Iris Van Nespen, who has Reclaim Your Sparkle coaching. And what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is just my Facebook page and send me a DM, or you can go to my website, which is reclaimyoursparkle.coach. But going onto Facebook and sending me a DM, that's the quickest way for me to respond.
That's
So,
great.
mhm.
Now, you know, I'm going to bother you and ask you, I ask everybody to share a dare or a prank story, one you've done, had done to you, or one of those family stories that's been passed around for years. What can you grace me with?
Okay. So I can tell you a little story about joy because I think it fits. Um, and I remember I went to get my son from school. I have 3 kids, and I don't remember why, but it was only I only had to go and get my son, who was almost 12 at that time. So he was already a little, like pre-adolescent, and we walked to the car. We're walking to the car, and he was in a really bad mood. Normally he's quite okay, but he was in a really bad mood. And so I see the car, and I turn to him and I say, let's run for the car. Like the first one at who reaches the car has won. Which is something I don't usually do. And I start running, and I look, like, after like a few meters, I look backwards, and he's not moving. And I'm like, oh no, I was so sad that he didn't follow my lead. So I waited until he came next to me. And just before he reached me, I saw his sparkle in his eye. And I was like, oh my God. And he started to run. So he was just like, he was actually pranking me, and he started to run. So we both were running towards the car. And it was such a moment of joy for me and for him as well, that I still remember it, because it showed to me that you can create it at any moment. Like, do something silly, like daring your kids to run to the car. Like, I wouldn't have thought of that like 6 months before that, But as I was looking for things that gave me joy and that I could give joy to others, you start doing silly things like that. And that is when you feel alive. So
Yes. That is
And I
when
was
you
so
feel
happy that
alive.
me too, because he knew he was going to run. He knew it, but he
I
was
bet
just
he won too.
mm-hmm. He did. He did. They're so much faster than me. Even
Yeah.
my 6-year-old, I 5, almost 6, she's faster than me. So
Let him be faster. That's fine. Oh, this has been so much fun. I am honored to have chatted with you, Iris Van Nespen. And I want people to reach out to you at reclaimyoursparkle.coach or find her on Facebook and send a message. And remember, Iris, we can only be strangers once. And I invite you to stay weird.
I will with